5 reasons why my miscommunicator of the week is Will Smith. So unless you've been living under a rock for the last week, you will probably have heard, maybe even seen the footage of Will Smith slapping the spit out of comedian Chris Rock at this year's Oscars for a joke that Chris Rock made about his wife, Jada Smith. Just in case you haven't, here's a quick recap. A bad language alert.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
Now, if you've seen any of my Communicator of the Week outputs before, you will know that I make it a point not to pass any moral judgment on the substance of the communication, which means that often I am promoting people that I fundamentally disagree with purely because their example of communication on that particular week was strong. So normally I don't do that, but it kind of occurred to me that in order to really do an analysis of the communication or the miscommunication of Will Smith in this case, I probably do have to pass a little bit of a morality judgment on my part. So I thought I'd just set out what it is I actually think so we can get that out of the way. So here goes. So easiest way to do this is to go in order of the various people involved. Number 1, Jada Smith. Got to be pretty tough to sit in front of the entire world and have a comedian make a joke about your hair, which you have come out with, talking about the fact that you have alopecia. So it's got to be pretty tough. And you could tell from her reaction that this was something that she did not enjoy. So really my heart goes out to Jada in this moment. That said, I also want to say this. I do not think it was that bad a joke. Now, I know I'm going to get some flack on this, and this is why I normally don't talk about the morality of it all. But let's put it this way. Chris Rock was making a joke that she kind of looked like G.I. Jane. Now, if you've seen the movie G.I. Jane, not very good, don't recommend it. But it is where Demi Moore, who was a very beautiful woman, had long flowing locks, shaved off her hair in order to play the part of I think the first Navy SEAL or first woman to go through Navy SEAL training. And she actually looked pretty badass when she shaved her hair. And actually, for all the various people who suffer alopecia that I have seen, and I've seen a few, Jada Smith looks fantastic. She looks awesome. If you look at the pictures of her, she's got a perfect shaved head, a bit like myself, and she looks great. She looks sexy. Some of the pictures she brought out for Instagram, on Instagram, about the Oscars and even before, she just looks wonderful. So I actually have to say, I think you are fair game, Jada. I'm sorry. I know it's tough. You are a celebrity and sometimes your life is overexposed, but she has put herself out there. Chris Rock made a joke that is probably as mild a joke as you can make about somebody suffering alopecia, whilst actually kind of giving her a compliment that really, truth is, she looked pretty badass. So I'm going to say, yes, you were the person who was most wronged in this, but I do not think you were so wronged that it justified what your husband did. And I actually don't think that you do either. On to Chris Rock. The joke was pretty tame, or lame, I should say. I don't think it was as bad a joke as it has been made out. I know I'm going to get flack for that, but I actually think, as I said, when you are a comedian like Chris, you are brought up there to roast people as he has been done. You choose somebody who is as strong and secure and you would think able to take a joke as the Smith family. And you know that you are friends. You've worked with them before. You've hung out with them before. I think it was a joke that was fine in the scheme of doing roasts. Compare that to some of the stuff that Ricky Gervais has done and you'll see what I mean.
There were a lot of big films that didn't get nominated this year. Nothing for Sex and the City 2. No, I was sure the Golden Globe for special effects would go to the team that airbrushed that poster. Well, great job. Girls, we know how old you are. I saw one of you in an episode of Bonanza.
But actually, the most important thing I want to say about Chris Rock is the incredible restraint he showed when he got slapped by Will Smith. First of all, he stopped himself reacting and responding with violence. Well done, Chris. Secondly, you could see that he was truly hurt by another man, another black man coming up on stage to slap him. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. And I think he did a remarkable job of showing restraint and thinking quick enough to at least say something, despite the fact that you could see that he was physically hurt, of course, but much more, I think, emotionally hurt by the behavior of Will Smith. So kudos to you, Chris. I know you will get flack for the joke that you told, but I do not think it was so bad that you should get any flack. And actually, I think you showed remarkable restraint in dealing with what was obviously an unscripted moment. All you conspiracy theorists saying that it was scripted, total rubbish. So that's where I stand on Chris. The other celebrities at the Oscars, shame on you. A man just walked up and slapped the spit out of another guy and you gave him a standing ovation. I don't care about the whole redemption thing that Hollywood stories like to have. The point is, you should not have condoned that by standing up and applauding a man who had just assaulted another man, no matter what the provocation, the apparent provocation was. So I do not respect all of you Hollywood celebrity types that were at the ceremony for doing that. The Oscar organizers themselves, you should be taking action. I personally don't agree with any action being taken against Will Smith. I'll come on to why I say that. But as an organization, you should not be condoning somebody assaulting another on stage. There should be a consequence. You should take it. That is your job, whether I want you to do that or not. So here are my 5 reasons why Will Smith is this week's Miscommunicator of the Week. Reason 1, the children. Will, you are a role model. You know that, you've talked about it, you respect and recognize that the example you set to the world's children is important, and you have just shown them the worst example of how a person should conduct themselves. You were a bully. You are about twice the size of Chris Rock, and you went up and slapped him. That is violence. That is appalling. And what it shows is that you respond to an issue, an insult with violence. That sends a terrible message to your own children, but I'm sure you'll deal with that. Certainly sent a terrible message to my kids. Okay, they weren't watching, but they did see it afterwards and we had to discuss it. And you set a terrible example to the world's children who will look at you and think, maybe it is okay to hit and smack somebody or beat somebody up who says something that I don't like. That is bullying behavior. I don't like it. And that is my reason number 1. Reason number 2, your message of disrespect to the other Oscar attendees. Because instead of talking about some of their remarkable achievements, we're all talking about you. Think about it. Troy Kotsur won the first award ever given to a deaf person as Best Supporting Actor. Jane Campion won her 2nd Oscar, making it the 2nd year in a row, or the first time that 2 women have won the Best Director Award 2 years in a row. And then the one that killed me, Samuel L. Jackson, won his first ever Oscar. Samuel Jackson. First ever Oscar for career achievement. None of us are talking about that because we are all talking about you because of your egotistical need to do some sort of macho standing up for your wife, which in fact didn't really achieve that in the first place. So that's my reason 2. Samuel, man, do something. No, that's advocating violence. Samuel, I'm sorry for you, man. And my 3rd reason is the choice you made about the response you could have given, or the responses you could have given that you didn't. Because I don't think your actions were actually a credit to your wife, who you say you were there to defend. I doubt she liked them or was impressed with them. I don't know. There is something called the Streisand effect, named after Barbara Streisand, who sued an organization for posting pictures about her Malibu home that she didn't want to be shared. And as a result, the whole thing went around the world. So it's kind of like overreacting to something that brings more attention to the thing itself. He could just have let Chris Rock's joke go and nobody would have talked about it for the rest of the evening. But by his actions, he made it much more prominent. He could have just heckled Chris Rock from his seat. He could have hugged his wife and kissed her golden crown to show his love for how she looks and is cherishing her appearance, even though she's lost her hair. He could have walked up on stage knowing that, yes, I'm Will Smith, I can do what I want, grabbed the mic and made a joke at Chris Rock's expense, at Chris Rock's look and, hair or teeth or all the other things that Chris Rock himself would have laughed off. He could have stood up and said something positive about how we as men must cherish other women and not talk about their appearance. Any number of things he could have done other than just walking up, smacking the guy, then sitting back down and shouting obscenities on national live TV. Your choices were bad, Will. Your choices were bad. Reason number 4 is Will Smith's apology, which was basically a non-apology. Yes, he put out an Instagram post afterwards that was much more fulsome. Well done, kudos for that. But on the night, at the time when it really mattered, where he could have shown immediate contrition for his actions, he strolled up to the stage having won the Oscar and talked about how he is called on to love and defend people in the face of abuse. And really not apologizing in a way that suggested that he saw the wrongness of his actions. In fact, he didn't mention Chris Rock's name once.
I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things.
Your apology was weak, it was half-assed, and you should have done better in the moment when it mattered. And my reason number 5 is also the one that means the most to me personally, because Will Smith's actions played into that negative stereotype about black men that we are all just one step away from violence and aggression. It is not true, but by his conduct, he has shown the world or put forward to the world that that is how we resolve conflict. I really didn't like it, and it really would have been enough on its own as a reason for me giving him this award of the Miscommunicator of the Week. I think you could see in Chris Rock's eyes when he registered what had happened, his sadness that this was happening to him from another black man. I don't believe Will Smith would have hit a white comedian or a woman, which in my view, makes it even worse. It's kind of like he's taking advantage of this being another brother. And I respect the fact that Chris Rock, despite being invited to, despite the fact that he would have had every right to, declined to make a complaint to the police about the conduct, because I think it would have been him recognizing that he would have been putting another black man into the criminal justice system, and who knows what would happen when that goes on. So on every level, I really fundamentally dislike this from that point of view, and those are my 5 reasons why Will Smith is my Miscommunicator of the Week. On a personal message to Will, if you ever see this video, I love you, brother. I have bought your book for my son a couple of weeks ago. He's already making his way through it. And what I think you should be doing is not just on Instagram, but directly in person, going to Chris Rock and apologizing man to man, because that is how one black man should communicate with another. Peace out.
Yeah.